Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James. How you going, James?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Joined by Alan as well. How you going, Alan?
Good, how are you?
Good. And joined by Callum. How you going, Callum?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Introducing everyone separately,
That was good. Yeah.
as James likes
Yeah.
to do.
No, I just thought it'd be
Yeah,
good
no,
for new
it's
if there are
probably-
any new listeners. Not
it
that
is
there are
probably-
many
no,
any
but
new
it
listeners.
is good.
We had some subscribers that desubscribed or something.
Yeah,
It was like 37, 38,
What?
39, and then it went down to 37.
Yeah,
I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, no, it is a good process.
Yeah, because all the podcasts I listen to, even though they've been going for years, they always introduce themselves at the
Yeah.
start, just in case there's new listeners.
Yeah. Kicking back this week, taking it easy.
Yeah.
Kicking it easy.
Kicking it easy. Yeah.
So we'll start with the newer movies we've watched of note. I guess, James, we'll get you to start with Furiosa.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Can I just say, this is like Hideo Kojima's favorite movie of all time. He won't stop talking about it.
Yeah. Well, him and Dr. George Miller are
Did you see?
tight
Did
now,
you see
so-
the video of him meeting him on the red carpet? He's
Yeah.
like shaking. He's so excited.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a legend in
What
his own
did-
field, and he's like physically shaking.
What did-
visibly shaking.
What did Kojima tweet about it? He said, Furiosa is my... Something is my religion, and Furiosa is my... George Miller is my religion, Furiosa is my church. Something like that.
Yeah, and
I
also
can't
like
remember.
there's like one actor in it, and he's like that Snake.
Oh,
and now,
Tom Burke, yeah.
Yeah, and the entire time he's like, he just looks like Snake to me.
Yeah.
And then he just says he's Snake.
Oh, man.
It's like,
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Yeah, so I'm a huge Mad Max fan. The original's great.
It was filmed across the road.
Yeah, was. Mad Max 2 especially, I think, is honestly one of the greatest films of all time. One of the greatest action movies of all time. I would say it's a perfect movie. I love it more than anything. Mad Max 3, Beyond Thunderdome, meh. It's a kid's movie. They screwed it up.
Yeah.
Has some cool stuff.
Curse of trilogies, mate.
Has some cool stuff, but otherwise...
Yeah.
But Fury Road came out almost 10 years ago in 2015.
Yeah, wow,
And-
it's a long time.
Yeah, people went nuts for it, and I saw it and I liked it. But for me, Mad Max 2 Road Warrior was just so good that I was kind of like biased, and Fury Road, it didn't wow me as much as it did everyone else. Even though, like I said, I liked it and everything, I just wasn't blown away by it like everyone else seemed to be. And there were a lot of things I didn't like about it. And now 9 years later, Furiosa, the prequel to Fury Road, comes out. And I was just like, oh, it's a good, George Miller hasn't, it's like he's back, another Mad Max.
Is there a point to this movie, or is it just kind of just cashing in?
No, it's not a cash in at all, which is so yeah, I rewatched all the Mad Max movies, including Fury Road, and I like Fury Road more rewatching it now than I did initially, which I know to some people sounds insane because they're like, how did you not like it that much the first time? But for me, like I said, Mad Max 2, I'm like, why isn't everyone talking about Mad Max 2 like they do about Fury Road?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because Fury Road's newer and younger people.
Probably.
But I mean, we're not that old, and I
Yeah, no, but
But
there
anyway.
is that element where people kind of will prefer the newer movies,
Yeah.
the older movies, because it looks newer. It's already surface level.
Yeah, and Fury Road is a very impressive movie, and it is a miracle that it exists. So I do understand like that part of it, just on a technical level, if nothing else. So yeah, I rewatched all the movies, watched Fury Road, and then I went to see Furiosa, and it's 2.5 hours long. It's the longest Mad Max movie. It's a prequel to Fury Road without Mad Max, about Charlize Theron's character Furiosa when she's younger, now played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who I love.
She's amazing.
And I'm like, all right, this looks cool. There's just too much CGI in the trailer. I was like, what? You guys weren't really interested. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see it. It is so weird and epic. It's like a live action anime. It's really long and it takes place over...
That's a big negative you just threw down.
No, in a good
Live
way.
action anime. I'm like, that doesn't have a good track record, James.
No, but it's like The Matrix is a live action anime, but that's good. Whereas a live action adaptation of an anime is not.
It's usually
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
an important distinction.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like this really long, weird. It takes place over like 15 years of Furiosa's life. It's epic. You see all these different places, there are all these different factions. There are all these different gangs and designs and costumes, and there's guys yelling at each other and action and crazy over the top stuff. And there's all these weird names and people throwing out like weird slang.
Sounds like Star Wars.
No, it's like way more like confusing isn't the right word.
Disorienting.
Maybe, yeah. And at the end of it, I was like, it's a mess and there's too much CGI, but I think I love it and I think it's better than, I think I might like it more than Fury Road. And I kept thinking about it, and there's a lot I don't like about it, especially the CGI. There's way too much of it, and it looks, a lot of it looks really bad. But just, I kept thinking about the movie. It's so weird and long and epic and just strange. And Chris Hemsworth plays the bad guy. He's got a big fake nose and a beard, and he's like, "Oh, how you going?" It's
The funniest part is, I seen that and he looks just like my uncle. my dad's brother in the old country. He's a drunkard, and looks just like
A podcast I was listening to is like, he looks like Guru Pitka from that Mike Myers movie, The Love Guru. You know, he's got the big fake nose and he's playing the Indian. Yeah. It's just so weird and cartoony, and it's structured really unconventionally. And like I said, it's epic and it takes place over a long time. No, it's linear. It's just, it's a long period of time. And it's cut up. It's cut up into like 5 chapters. Whereas Fury Road was like, the whole thing was like, it's one long chase scene. Yeah. Like you start at the start and it's like just a chase, like it never stops. This one is like chapter 1, and then all this crazy stuff happens, and then it like fades to black, and it says chapter 2. It's like this epic anime series crammed into 2.5 hour big budget movie. And I kept thinking about it and all this weird stuff, and like, you know, all the cool characters, and the action scenes are insane, and it's even more Aussie than Fury Road. Like they push the kind of Aussie-ness of it
to a culture cringe level, or it doesn't quite.
Not for me. I was like, this is awesome. And I was just like, I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, I think I want to see it again. But I've been trying to be good with money. I'm like, no, I won't.
Just wait for streaming.
No, and then the other day I was out somewhere, and I was driving past a Hoyt's, and I was like, I just turned in. I looked on my phone and was like, oh, there's a session in half an hour. So I went and I watched it again, and I'm like, yes, all those flaws are there, and even more so now you see them more, and the more you think about them, the more,
because now you're watching it for a second time, you can,
especially because it's
wonder,
especially because it's a prequel, and you know, it has to certain things have to match up to the timeline of when you get to Fury Road. And some of it's kind of like, oh, you know, I wish they didn't explain that, or that's something different. And also, this is something, you know, Furiosa was like written at the same time as Fury Road.
Really?
So, and there was a point where they were going to make it around the same time with Charlize Theron, and then, you know, and then they didn't get it made, and then it got delayed, and then they were going to actually make it as an anime, like an actual animated movie.
That would be cool. With
a Japanese co-director. Like, and that would have been really cool. And you can see the movie, like the movie definitely feels like a Japanese anime. And then eventually, like, you know, and there was all these other problems that kept it getting delayed. And so now we're almost 10 years later, and we're finally getting this prequel. And usually it would be like, roll your eyes, whatever. And the movie is doing really poorly. It's flopping pretty bad. And I think that's one of the reasons this has been so long. Even though people liked Fury Road a lot, it wasn't the biggest blockbuster ever. And a lot of people, after 10 years, young people probably haven't watched it. So now, even if they're grown up,
it's an awkward timing for it. And also the cost of living is kind of...
That's the other thing.
So people are like, I'm going to stay home.
They have to save...
This has actually been a big sticking point on movie Twitter in relation to Furiosa, but movies as a whole, the movie industry is softly tanking at the moment. So it's not just, if you like look on Twitter or Threads or whatever, you can see people talking about it in depth, about how like basically no movie except like Oppenheimer and like movies of that magnitude are actually making the money that they should be making or would have made 15 years ago. Because everything's just changed. Because like there's more streaming options now than there were 10 years ago. Everything's more expensive now than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
People just don't want to spend the money when they can go elsewhere cheaper to entertain themselves.
And I think there's now more than ever, it's people are like, I'm only going to see the biggest movie that I want to see at the movie. And even if there's ones in between that I want to see, I'll have to skip them and wait until, you know, I was listening to the same podcast I was listening to, Blank Check. They were talking about how a lot of people who might want to go see Furiosa are like, I'm going to hold off until Deadpool and Wolverine comes out because that's my big Marvel, like the big blockbuster that I'm going to spend my money on.
People have to pick and choose.
Yeah, so it's like
especially
we're already
in
halfway
America where like some chains in America are quite expensive. We're kind of
even here.
We're kind of lucky where we can get, you know, we can go high end, but our local cinema is not the worst in terms of pricing for tickets.
Yeah.
For matinee sessions. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess you can always like wait for a cheaper session or, you know, they do, you know, cheap Tuesdays or whatever. But it is still very expensive, especially for new release movies if you want to see them straight away.
Just sneak in without paying, not that we're condoning that.
Or that, yeah.
Better than piracy, I guess.
Is it? Isn't it?
I mean,
you're still seeing it on the big
screen. I mean, it's the same principle.
Yeah, but the artistic merit.
Oh, you're okay. You buy an over expensive popcorn.
The artistic merit is
which is where the theater, makes their money anyway. So you're paying the theater, but you're just not paying the the movie. So you are pirating it basically, but you're supporting the people. Playing the movie.
Yeah. You look after your community.
Yeah. Keep the cinema alive. Kill the movie industry so that cinemas have nothing to play.
They just play the old stuff, the good stuff.
That's what I want.
That'd be good. Yeah. But I kept thinking about it, and I rewatched it, and I was like, yeah, it has a lot of flaws. Yeah, especially for someone like me who hates CGI, there's some really bad stuff. But the action is still just so well shot, and the movies are so well edited, and I like this crazy over-the-top world that George Miller's created. One of my problems with Fury Road was like, in the first couple of Mad Max movies, it's like, yeah, it's crazy, it doesn't really make sense, but it's like there's some sort of groundedness, whereas Fury Road felt much more fantastical. And I think I pushed up against that a little bit. And now watching Furiosa, it's a straight up like fantasy movie set in the post-apocalypse. And I love that all the lore, because Fury Road was so light, like it was so lean and mean. And it was like, he has all this background and he has all this extra stuff already written down and imagined, and all the, you know, he has backstories for all the characters. And he's given it to all the actors. But you don't need any of that in Fury Road because the story is just about the chase. Whereas now with Furiosa, it's like a full-on, like, here's all the lore I wrote that goes behind the world and goes behind Furiosa and goes behind Immortan Joe and all the other characters. And some people, like, really don't like that, and I understand why. And I kind of love how it's just like a crazy deep dive into the lore of the wasteland that George Miller has created. It's just a full-on fantasy movie now, and I think that's why it's so much more cartoonish and over the top and crazy than Fury Road was even. And I watched it and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I went home and I was like, I'm going to watch Fury Road again so I can watch them back to back in the chronological order the story takes place. Because originally I watched Fury Road first, and then I went to the movies and saw Furiosa, which is the release order.
Because they were written at the same time.
Yeah.
Did you get any benefits from watching it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's definitely
narrative connections.
However, the version that was written back then and the version that is out now, there are a lot of differences. And some, like I said, some of those differences, even if you're not super aware of the history of it and the behind the scenes, if you just watch Fury Road and then you watch Furiosa, you're like, oh, I didn't think it was like that.
Yeah.
which is a prequel problem.
Yeah.
But this movie, because it's so crazy and because George Miller is such a, great filmmaker and he has such a strong vision, it feels less like, like you were saying before, it feels less like a cash grabby sequel and more like, here's all the stuff I had in my mind and all the stuff I had written down. And
I think it's just a problem that it took him 10 years to make.
that's the thing. And I hope he does at least, because he was 70 when Fury Road came out. And that's impressive for any filmmaker to make Fury Road, but
it's Jerry Seinfeld level.
Unfrosted, Fury Road, the two giants of cinema.
two amazing movies coming out in 2024 by old man directors.
No, Fury Road he was 70 in 2015.
Oh, so he's 80
So
now,
now he's almost 80, and it's like, it's so impressive that a guy at this age can make a movie that puts 99% of other blockbuster movies coming out to shame.
I'm saying here
And-
is David Lynch, as of the time of this recording, David Lynch has like an announcement on the 5th of June.
And how old is Lynch?
And
Wait,
how
is
old
today the 4th?
Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow in
So
America
maybe
it'll be the
6
4th,
years.
so a couple days from
So
now.
we'll see. It could be the year of old man directors.
Well, I mean, there are still a lot of old man directors working
Yeah.
today
No,
and
I
making
know,
great
but
films
like-
today. Scorsese just came out with Killers of the Flower Moon, whatever. But to make a movie like Fury
Yeah.
Road at 70 and then make a movie like Furiosa at 80,
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially because, you're in the desert and, it's hot and it's big. But he's such a good director and he has such a clear vision and he plans everything out so
I
well.
think for some of these guys as well, working keeps them alive. You know what I mean?
that's
there's that element of Scorsese where he's just like, he just has to keep working. He doesn't know how to do it.
It always made me angry when Tarantino was like, I'm going to make 10 films and then I'm going to quit.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
then
dude.
Scorsese at the same time is like, there's not enough time in my life left to make all the movies I want.
It's funny. He releases, what was it? Well, I don't know if it was Killers of the Flower Moon or the one he did previous.
I'm pretty sure it was Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
But then he was like, I finally discovered the importance of storytelling in film.
Yeah,
I'm like, are you serious? Like, just now?
Yeah. And now because he's getting to the that later point in his life, and he's like, "There's so many more movies I want to make," and Tarantino's like, "No, I'm just about done."
I
Disrespecting Scorsese.
I understand Tarantino. Like, I don't want to just keep making movies until they get worse and worse, and then everyone remembers me as this guy who used to be great. And I understand that.
No,
but if he has the opportunity to make movies, which is
but also
not
Once
an
Upon a Time
opportunity
in
a lot of
Hollywood
people
was
get to make.
fantastic. It's not like he's on the slide.
Yeah, he's also one of the only directors who gets to make pretty much whatever he wants to make. To an extent.
Christopher Nolan actually talked about this exact thing like a couple months ago, I think. And he said that someone asked him the question, how do you feel about Tarantino's 10 movies thing? And he goes, he understands, but also he goes, he loves making movies and he wants to make them as long as his body can continue to let him.
Yeah.
And he's like, so he doesn't see any reason to stop because he's like, why would
Clint
I stop?
Eastwood, what's he, 93 now?
Yeah, I'm like,
just keep going, man.
Yeah,
even if they're bad, even if all you do is bad
we're still going to
movies,
watch it.
It's like...
Yeah,
still interesting. People will still write like books about great filmmakers and be like, look, all their movies for the last 30 years were bad, but
they're still good.
Still going. Francis Ford Coppola's coming out with one that
Megalopolis.
probably won't be good, but
that's one I will
want to see it.
That's what I will have to. We will all go.
Oh, I'm going.
Alan, you going Megalopolis with the boys?
I'm hoping it comes out
I'll
at
do it.
IMAX.
Well, Alan, we're going to see
Okay.
Megalopolis.
Do you know what that is, Alan?
No, I've got no idea.
The guy who made
Sounds big.
The guy who made
It
Apocalypse
is.
Now and The Godfather has spent pretty much his entire career trying to make one film, never got it made, created a winery, a very successful
No one
winery.
would give him the money.
He
to
created a
make
very
it.
successful winery, sold the winery to make money to get the money for his movie Megalopolis.
Self-financed it.
Yeah, and it's apparently bizarre, and they're worried it's going to tank, and no one will give him any money.
Yeah. No one wanted to release
I've seen
it for a
two
long
types of
time.
reviews for this movie, or like pre-release reviews, that it stinks or it's like the best thing they've ever seen.
Yeah, and then there's guys who are
Always
like,
the truth is somewhere in
yeah,
the
no,
middle.
no,
Yeah.
it's
But-
funny. There are guys.
Oh, look, I fully expect it to be
Yeah.
bad,
No, no.
but I want to see
I
it.
saw
I
a
want
review.
to hold it. I want to burn it into my
I saw a review
eyes.
that was like, it's certainly his vision. I'm like, I think that says quite a lot.
Yeah.
But you got to respect the dedication where
Yeah,
you
exactly.
yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is like,
This is like
if
the-
you had the opportunity to make,
It's like the last gasp of a master. You have to go and see
yeah,
it.
and even if it is bad, like people will be writing about this in 100 years from now. It's like this great filmmaker, and then he kind of fell off,
Yeah.
and then he self-financed this crazy movie.
Yeah.
But
And,
it's funny,
I mean-
it also doesn't matter what anyone thinks.
No.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
he got to
That's
make
what's
it
so interesting
finally.
about this film is that it's his film. It's not he didn't make it for a studio.
Yeah.
He didn't make it to sell tickets.
Yeah.
He made it because he had this
And that's-
this idea that was burning in his mind.
That's also what's so interesting about Furiosa is like, you know, one of the problems now we always talk about is like mainstream blockbuster movies. They're all boring and samey and safe, and this movie it's a blockbuster mainstream movie, but it's so unconventional and weird compared to anything else coming out. So even if you don't like it, it's just so refreshing that there's a big budget kind of action movie where it's like structured in such a weird way, and it has this weird anime kind of visuals and storytelling, and it's so kind of Aussie, and the accents and the slang. There's a character called Piss Boy. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's just so weird.
I see memes about it everywhere where it's like,
Yeah.
my daughter Dorothy, and here are my sons, Cheese Eater and Bongus.
Yeah, that's pretty much a lot of the naming conventions. Yeah, but it's such a cool, weird, over-the-top, epic movie, and I kind of, like I said, it has a lot of flaws, and there's a lot of it about it I don't like, but I kind of love it.
Good.
And I rewatched Fury Road. I rewatched Fury Road twice, rewatched Furiosa twice, and overall, both movies now, I enjoy them much more.
They're a good pair.
Yeah, even though, like I said, you know, there's prequel problems and
Yeah.
everything doesn't match up, and you can tell they changed things from the initial sort of ideas and screenplays. Like Charlize Theron was playing it a certain way from what George Miller told her back then, that when Furiosa comes out, it's like, oh no, the story's different now.
Yeah.
So, but great.
So
like,
go see it.
I think, yeah, if like it's flopping, and I feel really bad because I want George Miller to make at least one more of these. And
yeah, but
also,
it's not his fault.
He's not. Let's be fair here. It's not flopping by himself. The industry's flopping. So I'm like,
No,
that
but-
can sort of give him a bit of hope.
yeah,
too.
but you know, I
Like,
mean,
if I was
it's
saying
also,
to George Miller, don't take it personally.
yeah, I mean, if Deadpool and Wolverine flops, then we know the whole industry's screwed. But it's like,
Oh, they'll
I
get the
think
Marvel boys out.
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Is there are certain movies where, you know, it's just shame that it flops because it is different, and it is weird, and it is cool, and it's not something we get every day. The last time we got something like this was Fury Road almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago was a completely different cinema landscape, streaming landscape, so different. So I think it's a shame that it's not doing that well, and I hope because of word of mouth it spreads, and I hope people listening to this, if you like Fury Road, if you want something crazy and over the top, and you don't mind sitting in the movies for 2.5 hours and being kind of weirded out, like, go see Furiosa, even if it's like the matinee, like cheaper session, whatever, because it's worth seeing. And even if you haven't seen Fury Road, you can technically watch it. Some things probably might not make sense, but it is a prequel, and it tells you everything you need to know in that story. Yeah, I think people should go out and see it because it's so weird and cool and interesting, and I kind of love how bizarre and crazy it is. Like, Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't show up until an hour into the movie.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And before that, it's just the little girl who plays young Furiosa. Like, it's this epic story. Yeah.
It also has Quaden Bales.
Yes.
He was a young indigenous boy who was bullied for having dwarfism.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
He's one of the war boys on the war rig. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah, funny bits with him. There's a weapon called the Bommy Knocker, which again very Australian. It's just so cool. There's like, yeah, it's filled with interesting characters and cool visuals and costumes and production design and action scenes. Really cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We'll move on. I also have a good prequel.
Ah.
The First Omen. Well, I
I
won't
feel
go.
like so the Omen's an interesting franchise, right? It's like I don't know what to compare it to. You've got the original saga.
Yeah.
Then they did like a movie
The
that wasn't
remake.
connected or whatever. But then there's also the TV show which retcons everything else. But the
Well, it's like
first
The
film,
Exorcist. It's
Yeah.
like it was like
Essentially, yeah.
classic 70s like horror movie, and then they made a bunch of sequels. Most of them weren't that good, and then they tried to reboot it, and then they made a TV show.
I'll start off by saying I really, really love this movie.
I've
The
heard
First
it's
Omen.
so. on paper,
on paper,
on paper, an Omen prequel, cash grab bullshit. Like what was the Exorcist Believer?
100%.
Yeah, you're like, and on paper, this is such a Nathan pick. Like, I'm going to go watch an Exorcist Believer. Why? You know it's going to be bad. I want to watch the First Omen. Why? But I heard it's actually good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's made by Akasha Stevenson. Do you remember quite a while ago we talked about Brand New Cherry Flavour?
Oh, yeah.
She did the first episode, and I'm not sure if she was the showrunner or the writer.
Man,
she directed the first episode.
Okay.
I love that show. They're not.
It has a lot.
They're not bringing that back, are they?
No.
No, because it was a mini series, even though it needed to be a full series or a movie. That was one of my problems with that.
It had, and she also directed or show ran the third season of Channel Zero.
You gotta watch it.
That was
I never watched
the worst
that.
season.
But anyway, it has brand new. I never watched that, but it has brand new Cherry Flavour vibes in it.
It's very stylish. That movie, that show was very stylish.
It has those kinds of vibes in it. That kind of dready, kind of subversive kind of nature. And it was made by 20th Century Fox or 20th Century Studios, which is really interesting because the movie feels dangerous. Like, it feels like an A24 movie, not like a Fox movie. Like, Disney wouldn't allow this to happen.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a little bit over 2 hours. It's, for parts of it, it's quite slow and methodical. In, like, you think of, like, The Exorcist Believer or modern day kind of horror reboot prequel. Yeah. And it's just like jump scare here by the numbers. This is like the opposite. This has more in common with the horror movies made like the original Omen in the 70s than it does with today's.
Interesting.
Like, it's filmed on location in Rome, and they use buildings for an orphanage. There's no CG. There's very little CG. There is CG because there's, demon iconography.
And it's set in the 50s, or when's it set?
It's set in the early 70s. 71.
Okay, so it's like just before the first movie.
It's just before the first movie, or a few years before the first movie. It lines up appropriately.
Okay, yeah.
And like, the large part of it's stylishly, it has kind of modern techniques and everything else, but it feels like a 70s vibe horror movie.
Yeah.
Almost like some of it's almost like Giallo-esque kind of. Yeah. Like, you think someone's following you and like all that kind of tension.
It's about the atmosphere.
Yeah, the movie, it's a horror movie filled with that kind of that tension and dread. There's almost no jump scares.
That's good.
But you would like it.
Yeah.
And then even from you watch the first 5 minutes and you kind of know what you're in for. There's even just scenes where there's no violence, but it's incredibly unsettling. And which is the kind of way we like a horror.
Yeah. And you said it was shot on 35mm.
It's shot on film.
Yeah.
Which is, again, another weird kind of aspect of this movie being made in 2024 by Fox.
Yeah. Which is Disney.
But they're shooting it on film. And in America, it was playing in film.
I wanted to see.
Like, I didn't even know it came out in the theaters here yet.
It came out and I was just like, eh.
Yeah, I missed it. I should have gone to the movies to see it because seeing this at the movies would have been amazing. There's one scene I'm not going to go into, maybe we've all seen it later on.
Yeah.
The movie got knocked back 4 times by the MPA for how graphic this sequence was.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine playing it in the cinema and seeing people leave.
Yeah.
Like, just legitimately getting up and leaving.
Every time,
because it's disgusting.
Every time a new horror movie comes out and there's like, oh, so crazy over the top. And then you watch it and you're like, that wasn't that bad.
No, but this is that bad. Once we've all seen it, maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Is it like Terrifier 2 bad?
In certain respects. But Terrifier 2 doesn't go this far in other ways.
I feel like Terrifier 2
I haven't
is
seen
also
Terrifier 2. I mean,
but Terrifier 1 and 2 are also specific movies where it's just about how far can we push the gore.
How far can we push violent gore?
Yeah.
This is a bit different.
It's like, how disturbing can we make?
Yeah, but also being very explicit in unexpected ways. And the MPA knocked this film back 4 times for this sequence.
Yeah.
And they refused to cut it too much. And the sequence is still 18 seconds long.
Much like Furiosa, it's like we don't get mainstream blockbuster kind of decent budget movies anymore that are R-rated, like adult movies.
Yeah.
And horror movies are the only ones that are still,
this is
most
weird.
of the time, R-rated. Yeah. But like you were saying, they're less transgressive or less shocking than...
Especially considering this is a mainstream title.
Yeah.
It's a franchise title. But they treat it as if it's like an A24 kind of indie horror almost. It has that kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
Fox shouldn't be making these kinds of movies. You know, like it feels it feels dangerous.
It definitely feels like, oh, this should have just been another Exorcist Believer or Halloween Ends, or where you're just like, oh, they're doing this again.
Don't watch it with your parents and make the mistake I did. But to be fair, that was Mum's mistake. She wanted to watch it.
That was her fault. She picked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you said she liked it.
But she did. She said she liked it.
She'll never sleep again.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I did hear that it's actually, it's one of those movies where people are like, oh no, it's actually good, because you have to convince people that this prequel based on a classic franchise that's had a million sequels that have just kind of run into the ground,
and it respects the original film. It has some of the same characters, and it ties up. It all ties into essentially the start of the original Omen film from 1976 or whenever it came out. So it does kind of respect the original, but it's like it's another thing. This is like a movie in 2024, a horror movie, and there's like at some points hundreds of extras on set. And there's it feels like a movie they don't make anymore.
That's interesting.
And that's what I'm saying. If you can go to the cinema to see this, much like Furiosa, and use your hard-earned dollars, this is a good one to see.
Yeah, I don't think it's playing at the cinema anymore.
No, not here anymore. It's past its 8 weeks at the cinema, and now it's on streaming. It's on Disney+.
This is another reason people aren't going to the movies, because it's like, well, it's going to come out on streaming eventually.
And it looks really nice on Disney+. It has the Dolby Vision as well, and all the kind of bells and whistles.
Would you guys agree Disney+ has the best streaming quality?
Yes.
Just in terms of the picture quality?
100%.
Yeah.
Max is up there.
Max is good too. I don't have Max.
No,
I've only watched Max at your place.
Pleb.
Yeah.
But no, I would say Disney is probably up there.
Yeah.
It's probably in the top most.
Because if I watch Netflix or Amazon, it's
Netflix
usually the Black's Crush, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Netflix, but Disney is tight.
Disney
and
has always
this
been
is a
quite-
good looking film.
Yeah.
Like shot on film. I can't recommend it enough to the boys. And if you watch it, we can discuss a spoiler review in detail, because there is stuff to talk about.
I was going to say, because, it's one of those movies where it's like, oh, it's not going to be good. And then it's like, oh, it's actually good. And it's like, oh, we should watch it. Do you remember around the same time the First Omen came out a few months ago, that another similar horror movie, The Immaculate, came out?
There's been comparisons to Immaculate.
Yeah, I've heard that they're similar, and they're both shocking, and they're both actually not bad.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we should do a double feature.
Yeah. Also, the movie apparently it has a lot of inspiration from Possession with Sam Neill.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'll need to
headline,
watch that.
Yeah, that movie's crazy.
Apparently it shares a lot of DNA with Possession as well.
That movie is
Yeah.
actually unsettling.
Yeah, that movie's crazy.
I can't even describe it to you.
Yeah.
So the movie for me, this First Omen, again, very surprising coming from like a mainstream studio. It only had a $30 million budget, but it was shot on film with real
that's
locations.
The thing. You don't need to spend a gajillion dollars and put a CGI and everything.
But you know why they managed to do it on this budget? Because there's almost no CGI. There's prosthetics. There's practical.
Yeah, because if you actually get a good filmmaker
and this is I keep forgetting her name. It's Akasha.
Yeah,
it's her directorial debut, and she was able to get away with this
for a feature film.
Yeah, feature directorial.
See, debut. It is interesting. Like, why?
Well, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I made brand new Tray Flavor," I'd be like, "Here's $1 billion." Go
They're
nuts.
just like,
but that's unconventional. You think about how many movies are so bad now because studio executives are just like, let's get the safe choice, or let's.
I do laugh. I would like the conversation in the room where it's like, we'll only give you $30 million, and she's like, that's fine, I can make that work, and then she comes up with a crazy shit. Because to the studios, that's nothing.
We've talked about this before, where they need to take more risks by making lower budget movies that are more different and more adult, and instead of making $300 million garbage that might. Yeah, it might earn you $1 billion, but it also might completely.
But again, this movie costs next to nothing in terms of movie budgets these days. For big studio, $30 million, the director's directorial feature debut.
Yeah, and we always talk about like mid-budget movies that don't exist anymore.
The movie looks like $100 million movie.
Yeah,
it's surprising. People need to go see it and support this movie. And hopefully you boys will watch it and we can talk about it.
I think doing Immaculate and First Omen will be a good...
that'll have to work. Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you're a fan of especially there's some Cronenbergian body horror in this, you'll enjoy.
And practical effects,
yeah. It's It's all very disgusting.
Nice.
The boys will love it.
Mm.
Look, we might go to a very quick ad break before we come back with what else we've been watching. We'll be back right after these short messages. You're back on 98.9 Northwest 7, the Tuesday review. So yeah, I've just waffled on about how much I love the First Omen. I have one other film before we move on. I watched Atlas.
I also watched Atlas.
The J-Lo science fiction movie.
I was going to watch Atlas, but then I decided better of it.
Thank you.
It was too much CG.
Listeners, I'm shaking Alum's hand right now.
That never happens.
Because this is what there's
Partly because I'm an AI, but partly because...
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Alum's offended because the movie's anti-AI, and obviously...
and he's an AI. Oh, that makes sense. I wasn't shaking his hand. I was just
a digital handshake.
Yeah, I was clicking the space bar on his interface.
You're probably paying respects for
press F. Press F to shake hand. So a couple of weeks ago, before we started recording, I was talking to Nathan, and he said, I watched... What did we talk about? It was like a crappy movie we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
I can't remember. What did I watch?
Did
I disappoint everybody with?
Yeah, you always like, was it the Zack Snyder
Argyle?
thing?
Yeah, Argyle.
Oh, Argyle, yeah. You're like, it was either Argyle or was the Zack Snyder thing. What's those movies called? The
Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon, yeah. And I was just like, that's such a Nathan pick, like crappy CGI movie that is not going to be good, but Nathan's got to watch it. And I'm like,
you won't watch the Snyder cut of Justice League?
I thought you guys watched it.
No, we stopped halfway through because somebody had to go to bed.
I retract that handshake because don't watch that guy.
Some of us in the studio are employed.
I'm an AI. What do you want me to do? I'll take your job, and then you'll be complaining
He's
in the
going to
line.
take it eventually.
I'm taking it, and then you'll be in the line and suddenly complaining, AI took my job.
They took
Do you want that, Cal? Do you want it?
Nah.
That's what I thought.
Do we want to talk about South Park as well?
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll do 2 minutes on Atlas because...
Okay, yeah. No,
We'll save South Park for next week because I'll watch it too then.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet? All right, we'll do it next week.
All right, yeah, then we can have our medical professional in the studio talking about
Yeah,
that.
it's good. It was funny. I just wanted to do because, you were talking about some bad movie and I was like, I saw a trailer for a movie that's 100% a Nathan watch. And I'm like, I can't remember what it's called. And Nathan's just like, Atlas. And I'm like, I almost fell on the floor laughing. And I was like, yes, it's hilarious that you knew exactly what I was talking about.
I'm self-aware.
And I gave you no clues. I just said, I saw the trailer. And here we are, a couple weeks later, Atlas comes out. Nathan's like, I'm watching Atlas. And I
don't apologize.
I fully expect that from you. What's disappointing is that your bro over here is like...
He got roped into it?
Yeah, he's like, I watched it too. And then Alum, you guys were like, Alum's going to watch it too. And then Alum came in and was like, no. And I was like, thank you, Alum.
Look,
a man of culture and taste.
To their credit, I was about to watch it. Callum had already complained to me about it. I saw the Rotten Tomatoes at 22% or something. I was like, this is going to be a rough 2 hours.
Just the trailer alone, not even the trailer, just the poster, like a Netflix exclusive J-Lo sci-fi movie. Come on,
Like,
man.
You know what though? Like I explained to someone at work, this is what you pay Netflix for. To have these random blockbusters with random celebrities doing random things in front of a green screen.
It's the content farm that we always complain Netflix, they just churn crap out and it's just like, what is this?
Because I sat, look, I gave it like a solid 2 to 3 minutes, and I think
you started it.
Yeah, I didn't see a single scene where I'm like, this is shitty CG. That's all it is. Like, is there anything good going on?
And the whole movie, it's just her sitting in a CGI pod.
Correct.
So
and it's like at times like bobblehead,
the Hulk.
Yeah.
I was like, look, man.
Anyway, Nathan.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it today. I'm going to break the curse. I'm going to watch Reservoir Dogs.
Oh wait, should we finish Nathan?
Yeah, look, I didn't hate it.
Kill surprise.
In my Letterboxd review, I said it's Titanfall the movie. It has some bad CGI, but the movie itself is fun. The buddy elements to this buddy adventure movie hold up, and I was engaged throughout.
So it's like she's like an analyst who gets stuck in a AI robot to fight evil AI.
Basically, yeah.
And then she becomes friends with
it's
iRobot.
Yeah,
because she doesn't trust AI, but then she has to team up with the AI to fight the AI.
Essentially,
I've said AI a lot.
Yeah,
AI.
I'm pretty happy about that.
Look, I think people can judge it for themselves.
All right, Callum, what do you think?
Look,
He's bored already.
No. I would be a liar if I said that I wasn't moved by the end sequence.
Okay.
But the movie, if they'd made this movie in the 90s and it was practical, it would have been the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah.
I think that the problem is that most of the movie takes place in a mech suit, which is by design CGI. So J-Lo doesn't get a lot of time or opportunity to move around in the world. She spends her whole time...
And she's alone most of the time because
she's essentially a Gundam pilot. You know what I mean?
But she's also fighting robots, I assume?
Yeah, and it's all just on green screen.
So it's just all CGI.
It's just lots and lots of green screen.
Yeah.
Some of the CGI is okay. Some of it's particularly bad. There's some explosions that look like they were just like paste it over, and I was like, that's rough.
Yeah.
Like, you know, MC levels rough at times.
Remember MCU was like, oh, this is so special
not anymore.
So not anymore.
Never forget Shang-Chi.
Oh, the
chest or whatever.
The chariot, horse carriage that falls over.
And then when you
it's like PS2.
When you think it can't get any worse, they release Quantum Mania.
My God.
And I'm like, they're very clearly on like, I'm sorry to derail this.
No,
There's that one scene where they're clearly on a green screen, but the floor texture is entirely flat. There's no bump mapping on it. Yeah. So it looks like it's supposed to have texture because that's what the green screen has. Like it's like some type of whatever rock or whatever, but it's just flat. Yeah. And I was like, how did this...
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, how CGI seems to be getting worse, and it's for a lot of reasons.
There was a thread, a Twitter thread from a specialist about it who works in the industry. They said that the reason, if you go back and watch the early parts of the Caribbean movies, the CGI is really good because everything was methodically planned beforehand, and they only needed like a couple of takes of the CGI. Yeah. Whereas now, everyone's changing the ideas all the time. There's reshoots all the time.
The movies were shot practically, and then they added in the CGI they needed for just the things they needed. Whereas now it's like everything is CGI. Yeah, even like, you know, J-Lo's makeup, they probably just make her smooth, put an Instagram filter on it, smooth her out a bit. You know, it's like everything, and that's why everything looks so digital and fake and flat.
So she doesn't get a lot of time to actually move around. She's just kind of in her mech suit, you know, gesticulating at things. Yeah. The story was mediocre at best.
Any good action?
No. Look, the story itself is just random. I didn't.
Nathan's just sitting there, like, looking down. These like, these bastards shit
on my movie. Keep on. I gave this stuff.
Nathan knows what
I gave this movie.
I know what
he did.
Look,
I'm a monster.
Look, I gave this movie 2.5 stars. I didn't.
That's too high.
I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like this movie's story could have been generated by ChatGPT. Because it's incredibly paint by the numbers, and a lot of movies these days are paint by the numbers.
That's some of the memes I've been seeing. Is like, it's funny that a movie about a future war against AI feels like the first movie made entirely by AI, but it's also just a lot of movies now feel like that. Well, you know I mean the subscription, but that's another thing. Furiosa, you can't tell me that was written by AI because it's so crazy and it's so.
Yeah, this film was made by committee. That's what I think I'm going to say. It wasn't someone's singular vision.
This is why when all these Netflix type straight streaming, like Atlas is a prime example. It's just like, this is just content for their streaming service. It is not a real movie. It is not a piece of art. It is not a story. It is something they needed to churn out quickly to get to.
Well, joke's on me because I watched it, didn't I?
Well. This is like I said, from Nathan I expect it, but from you I'm very disappointed. You should go back to the stack.
No, it's brand new, you know what I mean? I couldn't help myself. It's brand spanking new. But then we watched something old.
Wait, do you want to do Reservoir Dogs first?
I'll just do a quick one on it.
Because explain the context of this. Because we've talked about it before. The curse.
Alright, so I quite appreciate Quentin Tarantino films, like most people do.
You're a big Pulp Fiction fan.
I absolutely love Pulp Fiction. Very much enjoy Kill Bill.
Did you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, we actually went to the movies to see that.
Seen Inglourious Basterds?
Yes.
I love that one.
It's a pretty good time. And what was it, Django? Great fan of Django.
Django's good.
Prolific use of the N-word in that movie.
As Tarantino is wanted to do.
At this time, it was contextually appropriate. You know.
See, because Alam's an AI, he's trained on all like Twitter and because Twitter's just
Twitter now allows porn, so it's fine.
Has it ever not allowed it?
That was like
officially allowed. Yeah.
Link in bio.
We should maybe to get more subscribers. We need to start doing.
Do we need to enable some of the bots in the comments?
Yeah.
But this
Al's
is
OnlyFans. Come
Nude,
to Twitter.
yeah, nude pics.
my first exposure to Reservoir Dogs was thanks to Bollywood, of course.
Yeah.
So I had seen like the
Not
ending.
The Simpsons?
Oh,
Did they do a
actually,
Simpsons riff?
They
That
did.
would have,
They did
yeah.
I probably would have
Yeah.
seen The Simpsons with 22. Well, a few different.
22 short stories in whatever it is.
Yeah, they would. They would.
That was a Pulp Fiction one where he
Yeah.
gives the pawn shop and.
the pawn
Yeah,
shop.
yeah.
Then there was also.
But I think there would have been a Reservoir
they discussed
Dogs.
the Krusty Burger and McDonald's and how there's like
Oh,
partially
yeah.
gelatinized shakes and whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
there's-
Pulp Fiction as well.
There's a few references.
Yeah, but there would have been.
and such
I know. No, there's one I can think of is Itchy and Scratchy, where he's got the razor blade and he's dancing.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they did
So
that.
I'd probably seen other.
I've seen references.
But something I could like more accurately connect would have been like 2004ish, I think, in the old country. I was just there visiting, and then
Oh, you actually saw it in India.
yeah. So it's like they just had a movie on the TV. I literally saw the ending scene where like basically it's a whole shootout, and then the guy. Spoiler alert! If you haven't watched the movie from 1992, the guy turns.
Well,
out to,
you hadn't.
I had, but, the guy turns out to be a cop, and that's the big reveal. So I thought that was a pretty interesting film. I ended up actually watching that whole film, and basically they had
The Bollywood one.
Yeah, they had to Indianize it. So the whole reason the cops were after them because they were Indians, and like these Indians are up to something.
We talked
discussed.
about this. Yeah.
But I always wanted to watch the actual film that it was based on, and the
Mm.
actual Reservoir Dogs, and I just never really at the time I didn't really have access to DVDs or streaming services. Over time, I did get access to it, and then every single time I just sit down to try and watch it, something would come up.
Yeah.
Like I get called somewhere, or I have to do something, or I have to take a dump. And then after the dump, I'm just lost concentration. Just like the universe is always against me to watch this movie. I'm like, it's not going to happen. And today was the day.
And I kept saying you have to watch it. It's one I love Pulp Fiction as much as everyone else, but Reservoir Dogs I think I like even more.
It's a lot
And
tighter.
I think a lot of people, Pulp Fiction is like the big Tarantino movie that everyone knows. If a lot of people have probably only seen Pulp Fiction or only know of Pulp Fiction, I'll probably like Django is probably more popular for younger people. But you know what I mean? It's Pulp Fiction is the quintessential Tarantino movie.
Pulp Fiction
and I
has
was
the zeitgeist.
Quintessential.
the Quintessential. And I always tell people, you have to watch Reservoir Dogs. I like it even more. It's so good. And I was like, Alan, you have to watch it. I have to watch it. And he's like, I'm trying. I'm trying.
The universe is stopping me. It's standing in my way. And this time it didn't. This time it decided to stand in Atlas's way. It's like if you're going to watch this rubbish, we'll give you...
The film gods will do not watch this garbage. Watch an actual masterpiece of cinema.
Yeah.
So you finally had time to watch
Finally had time.
Reservoir
So obviously, a little context, it's just a bunch of dudes. They're all using pseudonyms to rob a jewelry store of diamonds.
Yeah.
And things go wrong. People get shot. There's some betrayal,
Yeah.
They're
hiding out from the cops. One of them's a mole.
and he's bleeding out. And then one of them is a psychopath, legitimately,
Yeah.
who brings another cop and chops his ear off and tortures him.
Yeah.
And, it's overall, I think for me, I'll make a little triangle of, my favorite Tarantino films with, Pulp Fiction, possibly at the top, and we've got Django, and then we got Reservoir Dogs at this point.
Okay, cool.
This is kind of where it sits. I thought, because this was his directorial debut, so I think he learnt a lot of lessons in this and put them into Pulp Fiction.
Oh, 100%.
Which is why
it's definitely rougher and rawer. Rawer? Is that a word?
Rawer.
Was one of the Reservoir Dogs related to Vincent Vega?
Yeah, it's
John?
what's his name?
It's set in
Michael Madsen.
It's set in the same universe, Alan.
Mr. Blondie.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Blonde.
Yeah.
It's set in the same
He's his
universe.
brother, yeah. And
Didn't-
there was going to be a...
Tarantino lamented not making a...
There was going to be a Pulp
Yeah.
Fiction prequel where
yeah, well-
Vincent Vega and his brother
Look,
team
all
up.
I'm going to say is you don't see Vincent
Something
Vega
But all,
die on
all of
screen.
Tarantino movies are connect in the same
Yeah.
sort of universe.
Like,
You
Who'd
don't
have thought
see him die on
that's-
screen, so he could still
yes,
do
you
it.
do.
Yes, you do.
He gets shot.
Mr. Blonde gets shot like.
Oh no, I'm talking about Vincent Vega.
No, he does. He gets shot and coming out of the toilet.
Yeah, but do you see him like die, or does
He
he
gets
just...
shot
Yeah,
by
He gets
Uzi.
shot and then he
You do.
falls
By
into
the
the.
Uzi.
No, and then Quentin says, "I shouldn't have killed him off."
It would just bring him. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
Just bring him back. I'm like,
That's
oh look,
true.
he didn't die after all.
I mean, that is true movie man.
But then there's other like
they got
issues.
to him in time.
Like
Just
he had a
yeah.
vest on.
Steve
he
Buscemi who
just did
plays.
a
Just change
boatload
his,
of coke.
change his name. Vic Vega is in Mr. Blonde. Is that his name?
Yes, he's Vic.
Yeah. Just make a third brother that
Identical-
just happens to
I-
look
yeah,
like
I was
John
identical twin
Travolta.
cousins.
Identical
like,
twin cousins. Yeah.
Because I'm like Steve Buscemi plays Mr. Pink, who runs away, but it's kind of implied that there's a cop shootout with him.
Yeah.
Outside, and I'm like,
You hear it.
He's like the waiter in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
At the diner, so I'm like
Buddy
gee,
Holly. I think it's Buddy Holly.
Buddy
yeah.
Holly. He changed his life. He turned it around, and
He got away and yeah.
Tim Roth, somehow survives.
Oh,
as Mr.
yeah.
Rog, and he becomes,
Honey,
he decides to go on more hunting. Like leaves as a cop and becomes like a a bandit.
Crazed, yeah.
But overall, like I thought it was a great film. Again, given what I've seen of Tarantino before, this obviously felt a little bit.
It's hard when you watch a filmmaker's other like later bigger films and then you go back to their roots and their first film and it's like much smaller and obviously much sort of like it's
In some ways rougher, but
rougher,
also
yeah.
less
But
tamed.
it's also but exactly that's one of the reasons I think I like Reservoir Dogs so much and maybe even more than Pulp Fiction is that it's just kind of so raw and rough around the edges and it's so simple, like it takes place mainly in the one location. And then there are flashbacks, and this is also it's like quintessential.
Quentinssential.
That's the episode title, Quentin.
He's like you can see he's like fully formed already. Like Pulp Fiction, once Pulp Fiction comes out, it's like okay, this is the guy forever. But Reservoir Dogs, you can see it's like he's got the dialogue, the pop culture references. He's got the what do you call it when it's out of order?
Sequential, anti-sequential, something.
God,
in sequential narrative.
No,
a non-linear narrative.
Non-linear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Damn, microplastics all up in my brain.
My one complaint is obviously
I'm not having kids. They're gonna come out like a Mad Max mutant.
Mr. Brown, who he plays himself, and Mr. Blue, who's played by Edward Bunker.
Oh, Quentin Tarantino plays Mr. Brown. Yeah. Why am I Mr. Brown? Mr. Shit.
They also use the F slur in that, and the N slur a few times. In the movie.
Of course, it's Tarantino.
But obviously his
the
character
Pope approves of the F slur.
His character kind of Mr. Brown dies off relatively quickly, but they really just entirely get rid of Mr. Blue after the first few scenes. You don't see him at all.
He's not really important. Is that Eddie Bunker? Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think he's only in there because he was like a real life criminal who became sort of an actor and a writer, and like he's more just there for cred. But I think it's interesting though because it's like you got these guys and a couple of them die in the shootout, and then a couple of them you don't know where they are until later, and then a couple of them it's like it's part of the
like given how long the movie was only an hour and 30-something minutes, I think, if you don't include the credits.
It's much tight. Tarantino movies started to get longer and longer, whereas this one's very tight and contained.
So if you kind of see those aspects, it's kind of understandable. Like, well, that's why if you bring in more and more characters, trying to give them all some kind of screen time and everything else, the story's probably going to bloat and then go extended. So
I'm sure the way Tarantino writes, he probably had like a 5-hour version of like the backstory to all the characters and doing this and doing that. But for his first film, he's like, I guess he probably had to cut it down. And then by the time you get to like Pulp Fiction, and it's like he gets to expand on his ideas more and more.
Yeah. So good movie. If you haven't watched it already, watch it. If
Great
you
movie.
Haven't watched it in a while, watch it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
All right.
Singing in the Rain?
Yes. I'd never seen this film before. The 1952 classic musical.
Mm-hmm.
And see, it's funny. So when I think of 50s musicals, as someone who's never really seen movies from that era, like let alone musicals, I had this preconceived idea of what it was. I start watching straight off the bat. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And when I say hilarious, I don't mean like quaint 50s humor.
Yeah.
I mean like
actually
modern
funny.
humor. Like there's a scene like straight away. It's a red carpet event. for the debut of a brand new movie. And the point about this film is they're transitioning into the talkies.
From silent films to the talking pictures.
Yes. And straight off the bat, you have a man I would call the Rizzler himself at this point. The original Riz King, Gene Kelly.
Yeah.
Playing do you remember the character's name?
Don Lockwood?
Yes. He talks to the press.
Yeah,
and then he's like telling them like this fantastical story of him growing up, and then it shows the real version, and it's so funny. It's like we went to this school for fine arts, and then it's like a bar, and like there's like mafia men or whatever, like smoking in the background.
There's like guys playing pool and throwing pennies at them the kids while they dance, and he's like, "Yes, we went to the finest academy."
And then it plays the film. Like you see the audience watching the film, and then it has the actress on the main
actress.
And then it cuts to a woman in the audience, and then she says something so modern.
She's so refined.
I wanted to kill myself. And then I lost it. I was like, this movie is not what I thought it was.
There's a reason like Singin' in the Rain is, a classic, one of the great movies. But because it's so old and because you get an idea of it in your head until you see it.
And also, like, it was just a good story on top. It was funny. Yeah. It was interesting. The musical numbers were good. Like well written musical numbers with actual well done singing. It wasn't like in the movie they fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And man, Gene Kelly, the charisma drips off that human being in this film.
It's crazy.
Like he looks at the camera and he's got that twinkle in his eye.
He's got the smile.
Got the well fitting suit. He's got the steps, the dance moves.
Yeah.
Just the king. I watched it and I was like, no wonder he was one of the biggest stars of like the 50s in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because good God, that man had like George Clooney plus charisma when George Clooney was at the height. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except if George Clooney sung and danced and, on top of all that.
Yeah.
Because you remember how big Clooney was in the 90s or whatever.
Yeah.
When he was like ER but this he was like huge.
Yeah.
Clooney's still big.
Clooney, he is. But like Gene Kelly's like 3 times George Clooney.
Yeah. I mean, there are different eras of Hollywood. But Clooney was also like similar to those classic Hollywood movie stars where even though he's still working now, I mean he's older now, George Clooney, but he was one of those classic movie stars with those classic movie star looks, when people talk about sort of but
man, Gene Kelly, big fan.
I remember because I was never really into.
I mean, I'm a fan of all the actors in the movie, but I just couldn't believe the screen presence. That Gene Kelly has. Is what I'm trying to say.
I love movies, but I was never really into musicals that much. And I remember back, it's a long time ago now. We were still doing the old show, and I remember I watched Singin' in the Rain for the first time, and we talked about it on the old show. This was years and years and years ago. And I was talking about, I'm surprised, like how much I loved it, how such a great movie it is. How so funny good. It is.
It's hilarious.
How much I enjoyed
it. The only thing I know from a movie with Singing in the Rain is the Clockwork Orange bit. Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Very different movies. Also, Donald O'Connor playing Cosmo Brown.
Oh, he's so good.
Excellent foil. There's some physical comedy in this movie that made me laugh. To do with a puppet. You know the one with the couch and the hand on his leg?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was so funny.
The make him laugh dance scene. Yeah, that's also the bit where he runs up the wall and does 2 backflips, 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And apparently, from what I've heard, is he had to do multiple takes and there was like a concrete floor under the carpet and it was like breaking his back. And then they're like, okay, we got it. And they went home and then they're like, oh no, there's something wrong with the film. Can you do it again? So he had to do it again and... Then apparently he had to like either rest for a long time or went to hospital for a while, like depending on the story. And also, I was also thinking like, I've also read that he was like smoking 4 packs a day.
Wouldn't surprise me. Those were the times.
But it's like I'm like
when doctors recommended
probably all those actors and actresses were all smoking and drinking all the time.
Yeah,
and yet
on doctors' orders.
Yeah. and they smoke filtered cigarettes because they're better for your health.
Doctors had their own brands.
Their own brands. Yeah. It's actually funny. I noticed this time when he's doing the Singing in the Rain dance scene, he stops in front of a drugstore and there's this big cigarette display in the window that. Like I'm amazed that probably a lot of these, even Gene Kelly was probably smoking and drinking a lot. I don't know, but like the energy and
Oh, dude.
the discipline and the
Yeah.
talent. And
There's that. You know the end scene?
There's a word for that, James.
Mm.
Cocaine.
There were probably a lot of
And,
uppers.
and
Yeah.
yeah, all kinds
There
of
are a lot
drugs
of
going
Hollywood
on,
doctors. Dr. Nick's subscribing,
Yeah.
prescribing.
Yeah.
Uppers.
That final sequence where you get all the lights,
Yeah.
incredible to look at, visually stunning to
Yeah.
look at, and then he walks towards the
It's-
camera, and it's like electricity.
Mm.
I can't, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
electric. You watch it and you're like,
They
wow.
don't make movies like this anymore where it's big and lavish, but also entirely practical, and
Yeah.
also it's comedy, drama, romance, music, dancing.
I loved
Um,
it.
Yeah, it's just like because Callum watched it for first time, and
It was also on 4K on Max. Which is
yeah,
where
I
watched it,
bought
so
I
it's
bought the
nice.
I bought the 4K, the actual 4K Blu-ray
Yeah.
physical. I bought the limited edition. It comes in this. It's got like a nice behind the scenes booklet. It comes with like a sticker and some lobby cards and poster cards and a poster. It's a really nice set. And you watched it, and I was like, oh, gives me the perfect excuse to crack open the
Yeah.
4K because I haven't even opened it yet. And I rewatched the movie last night, and yeah, it looks fantastic, but
Yeah.
it's just such a great movie, so fun.
That Technicolor, son.
Yeah, and I think it's modern enough for a lot of probably younger people to appreciate.
Look, we're in our 30s. You know,
Yeah,
we're
but-
not on the younger side.
No, but
But
a lot of
there's
people.
so much modern DNA in it.
Mm.
Which makes me realize, like, once they had that hit formula for writing comedy in the 50s,
Well,
they didn't need to.
But I think one of the
kind of
reasons
stayed.
like I was saying, it's like one of the reasons it is a classic beloved movie is because it's kind of timeless. Whereas
Yeah.
there are a lot of 50s comedies where it's
that
like,
didn't
this
translate.
is not funny, this does not translate.
Yeah, a lot of blackface.
This has not aged well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the non-racist parts, you're just like, how did they think this was funny? Whereas this is one of those classic movies where it's like every line. It's also one of those movies, the type of comedies they don't make anymore, where it's like really quick banter.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, what are you doing? It's like, help me out here. Call me a cab. Okay, you're a cab.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
like, and it's like bang, bang. And it's like so many of those. And it's always moving. It's really energetic. It's really funny.
All right, boys. More
Yeah.
at a time.
Great movie. You should watch it, Nathan.
Yeah, really good.
Yes, I will get on top of that for next week.
I can't stand him.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Oh, that's that's one thing I laughed my ass at was when she wants to do the speech and like, no, don't talk.
Yeah.
It's because she has the horrible voice because it's all
it's just
silent movies.
and then they transition to talking pictures, and she's like, sounds.
She's like, oh
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky Newsmast, and Twitter at Tuesday Review AU. Also on YouTube at Tuesday Review AU. We'll be back next
Check out the YouTube because there's exclusive episodes on there, and there will be more video content coming soon.
Yes.
And also follow us on Letterboxd to see what we've been watching, and if you see anything you want us to talk about on the show, let us know.
Yes.
My username is channeldrifter.
Mine is Nathan B _90. Alum's is Alum20. And Callum's is Callum Tuesday.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.